And we are here again. So, how have I done that? I have managed to do chat is disabled. I wanted to put that on, so I'm gonna have a look at doing this while I'm talking because I do have a tendency to talk, as you know. So, this stream, I've got to make sure that people can make comments on here, and I thought it was just set up to do that, and obviously not. Comments are allowed. It's saying that comments are on, and I'm not going to hold any things like so many people. Let me right. If this doesn't come up, then I really do apologise because I've set this up so that you can talk to me while I'm doing this, and it looks like chat is disabled for the live stream, and I do not understand why, because I wanted some interactions because it's more fun. So it is going. No. Maybe it's just going to come on in a minute. I don't know. So if it doesn't come on, then I really do apologise because I thought I'd set it all up properly and it should be coming up. And anyway, I'm just going to have to just talk at her. So here we go. Welcome to the ghost night. Now, if the weather had stayed as it was earlier, it would have felt really atmospheric because we've had loads of rain today and wind, and it was howling. So it would have actually been quite funny doing ghost stories with the background because it was free ambience. So I'm just going to see if I can do anything with this, but I'll just do manage. I'm just doing it right. So I had a couple of emails because I asked if anybody's got a ghost story they want to share, and I had a couple of them, so I'll read them out later. But I thought I will start off with my story because I said I was going to talk about my time in a paranormal group. So this is going back about 12 or so years ago, and I was on Facebook one day and I joined a paranormal group, and it was based in Halifax where I lived. And the lady that run it was called Olywn, and she was a psychic medium. And she used to have her own group down south where she came from. And in her own words, they used to go around after the programme called Most Haunted. So I don't know if anybody's heard of that, but Most Haunted was a TV programme. It played for years. I don't know if they still do it now. And they used to go around to alleged haunted locations and do live stream overnight, and then they'd edit it and put it on TV. And sometimes they'd do live events like 24 hours because I remember watching them. And when it first started, I thought it was great because it was new then. And there wasn't many things like that on the TV. And so they had a guy there called Derek Akora, and he was a psychic medium. And then they had somebody on there who was a, what do you call it? Somebody who didn't believe in it and stuff. He was more scientific in his approach, and he would be saying, "Nah, I'm not really into it. I can get to the bottom of this, and it's just not paranormal at all. It can be like leaking pipes or pipes that are just knocking because of the air or whatever, just anything." But apparently what would happen with that program is they would go to haunted locations and stir the pot. And my friend Elaine at the time said her team was always called in after the Most Haunted team had gone round, and her job was to undo the damage that they'd done. Because what they would do is go to these locations, and because they used it for entertainment purposes only, rather than a very serious thing of taking like the spirit world seriously. It was just for fun, really. And they would do like Ouija, and they'd call in the spirits and they'd say, "Is anybody here? Come and talk to us." But when the spirits came in, they'd all have panic attacks and run away screaming. And there was always somebody passing out, and there was always somebody getting possessed, and there was always somebody running outside crying. It was like a standard thing. So it wasn't a serious program, and it wasn't something that I took seriously for long. I could soon see that they were disrespectful to spirit, because there was one program they did where it was a little girl, and they said, "There's a little girl here," and she threw a marble or a ball over the floor, which later turned out to be one of the people in the program, by the way, because they have to keep the numbers up and keep people interested. But the point is, if there was a little girl there, they called her towards them, and when she did come towards them, they started screaming and crying and running around. So it's disrespectful, because if that was a child spirit and the child was needing help, then they were basically antagonizing it and making it more scary for the child. I mean, if she was disembodied and unaware of where she was and what was going on, if she was in like a dream type state, then they were just making things much worse, because they weren't respecting her. So I've got a real thing about these groups. So what Elaine would do with her group is go around afterwards and do a proper investigation. And she said at first they used to record it like they did on Most Haunted, and she had her own paranormal website. But she said the unfortunate thing was people would steal her work, if you like, the videos, and they'd either edit them, or they'd make fun of them, or they'd take them and use them for their own purposes. And she said, I didn't like any of that. So she said, I still record everything, but we do not record it for the public. We just watch it live and investigate live, and that's it. So I spoke to her and I said, I don't want to join any group that is making fun of spirits. And she said, I take it very personal. She said her husband had passed away and she still spoke to him, and the last thing she wanted to do was it to be made fun of, and she just no. So she said, no, it's not going to happen. It is literally very, very serious to us. And so when we go and do the investigation, we take into account that there are people there, just not in the bodies, and we talk to them as if they're there, and we deal with whatever it is they need. And because she was a psychic medium, she could speak to them, and she could see them, and she could hear them. Whereas if I had to say what I was, I'd say I'm more clairsentient, which is I can feel a presence, but I don't usually see nothing, and I don't hear nothing. So the paranormal activity that I have around me usually is things like things falling off, like my watch was falling off the shelf the other week when my Auntie Sue died, and things like my freezer exploded and stuff like that. So things around me tend to malfunction, if you like, or something will fall onto the floor, or something will break. It's just little things, but I can't say, other than seeing my nana when I was little, and other little things even there. I wouldn't say that I'm that psychic in that way, but Elaine was. And so she had a team, and there was Danny and me, her, and then it was just whoever wants to come along. So they were the main guys. Danny did all the setting up the cameras and all the equipment, and she was the one who spoke to the spirits. And then the other people that would go along would just go for whatever reason. So the first few things that we did, we went to haunted locations. like castles and old buildings. And to be fair and honest, I can't say that I experienced anything I would call paranormal. In fact, sometimes I thought it was quite funny because I thought there's literally nothing going on. This is just a dark building with nothing really here. And it's just us lot just wandering around in the dark. And I kind of felt like some people that came along would make up the stories, but it wasn't real, as in, I think they were just making up stories. So I didn't get much out of it, and I started to feel a bit bored, and I thought, it's nice enough for the company, and we get on and we have a good laugh, and not about the paranormal stuff things, but about life in general, and we get on well. But I went home one day, and we were due to go to a place in Huddersfield on the Friday night, and she phoned me up on Friday afternoon, and she said, I've just had a call from a young lady, and she's really, really distressed, and she wants to know if we will go to her house tonight. And I've said yes. So do you want to come along? And I went, oh yeah. Turns out it was a young couple, and they actually lived in my neighbourhood, which I found quite funny. And they were literally about 5 streets away from me, but I didn't know either of them. So we went round at about 7 o'clock that night. And how many people turned up? She already had a house full of people. So it was like she'd invited all her family and the street round. So there was about 12 people in the house. And I thought, oh, this is going to be ridiculous. Even young children were there. And so I wasn't really that excited then, because I thought, this is just going to be a mick take thing, and it's just going to turn chaotic. But I was actually quite shocked because what ended up happening was there was Danny and Elaine went upstairs and set up all the equipment, and she banned everybody from going up the stairs. So everybody had to stay in the living room or the kitchen or in the garden at the front. And it was quite a mild night. So there was a lot of people going outside for cigarettes, and they were all drinking as well. So it was a bit like a party night, really. But she was very strict with them, and she said, we're not going to be having no shouting and screaming. There's going to be no children running around. If there's any fooling around, then I will ask you to leave. And if you don't leave, then I will. So that's it. That's the rules. So everybody was very aware of what it was going to be like. But I just had no idea what was going to happen. So I was kind of thinking, oh, it's going to be a bit sort of dull. But she said, can Kelly, and it was my partner at the time was called Paul. She said, can you two come into the living room with me and Danny? So we went in there on our own, and she brought the couple in, and there was a young couple in the 20s. And she said, I need you to tell me what's been going on in this house and what you think it is. So the girl started, and she said, we've lived here for a couple of years, and my whole life I have attracted things towards me, ghosts, spirits, and I've seen them my entire life. So I'm not scared. And she said, and what's happening to me is I'm feeling that somebody's around me all the time, and I can see who it is. I can see. But she said, I'm not going to say anything about that right now, because she was also testing Elaine, because obviously she wanted to know if she was legit. So she didn't want to say exactly what she was seeing or who. So she just said, all that happens to me is I feel like somebody's touching my hair and patting me on the back, and I feel comforted by whatever's going on. So I'm not scared. So Elaine goes, why were you then? And that's when her partner started to get really annoyed. And he said, you're here because of me, because I am not having this anymore. And he started swearing, and he was really quite upset. And he said, she might be getting patted on the back and her hair stroked, but I'm getting punched. and I feel there's an evil presence in this house and I can't cope with it. And every time me and her have a fallout, I get shoved and pushed and things get thrown at me. So pots, pans, everything. So there was paranormal activity. And he said in the back bedroom, I've got a punch bag, and that punch bag hangs from the ceiling, and you can't you cannot move that unless you physically touch it because they're really heavy and they're hanging on a chain. He said, but when I'm in that room and I go in there when I'm angry, because that's how I calm down, because I do some punching on that because it's my way of getting my aggression out and stuff. But he said as I go in the room, it'll just start swinging on its own. And it can't swing on its own. And he was really agitated. And he said there's times when I'm in here in the house on my own and all the electrics will just go off and it'll be dark outside. So I'll be plunged into darkness. And he said sometimes it'll go off when I'm going down the stairs. And I've fallen twice. And he was really angry about it. And he said, I'm just not having it anymore because this spirit is trying to kill me. That's what I feel like. And so his version of what was going on was the opposite of his partner's, who said that when she was alone in the house, she felt calm. She said things did happen around her, but they always have her whole life. So things would move around when she was there, but she didn't feel anything evil. She didn't feel it was anything bad or anything like that. So Elaine said, I don't need to know anything else other than I can see that there's a man who's just walked in here right now. And it's an older man. And she described what he was wearing and she described his name. And she said this was a man who lived in this house and he hasn't left. And he's taken a shine to you, to the girl, but she doesn't like your partner. And she doesn't like him because she thinks he's a bully. And it was really funny because I felt a bit embarrassed because I thought this is a bit sort of personal. But this girl, they were dead open couple, very, very open. And she said, yes, he is. He's always shouting and he's always screaming and he's always angry. And he went, well, do you ever wonder? And he was aggressive and he did admit it. And he said, I admit that I've got a problem with my temper and I try and keep it down. And that is why I use the punch bag in the bedroom. So I try not to direct it at her, but she does wind me up. And then we end up arguing all the time. And so we got the background story. Elaine had seen the ghost and she said it's a man, but she said there's someone else coming. I can sense somebody else. And so the girl ended up trusting Elaine because she hadn't told her who she'd seen. And because she described exactly what the girl saw, she knew she could really see him and she wasn't a fraud. So we were asked to go back into the kitchen area where they'd linked the cameras up upstairs to the TV downstairs. And so everybody who was there gathered in that one room. And then Elaine and Danny went upstairs and they turned all the lights out. So it was plunged into darkness. So the cameras that were used were all night vision. And the thing with night vision is we can see them and we can see what's going on around them, but they can't really see anything themselves. So they may be able to kind of see each other, but not anything else. Now, what I found really interesting is they put the audio on as well, and it was live streamed. So there was nothing set up, and there was a lot of witnesses there as well. And so they stood there in this back bedroom and they had the back against the window and they were facing towards this punch bag and they were nowhere near it because it was on the other wall. And so it was really interesting because what happened is in the corner of the room behind them, we all downstairs saw all the orbs come out of that corner. Now, there is this thing which I do believe is that houses, modern houses, are built with square rooms, like 45-degree angles on the walls. and they act as portals, and so do staircases. And actually, I have seen things like this, so I believe that. And in other cultures, some of them do not have 45-degree angles in houses, and they'll put rounded walls so the spirits can't come in. And it is quite myths and legend thing that portals in houses are the corners of rooms and stairwells. So they were stood there in the room and they were looking over towards the punch bag. But what they didn't see was the orbs that came swooping down into the room. And what was really interesting is we were all sat downstairs watching this in real time, and we all saw it, and we were all like, oh my gosh, what the hell's that? Because you don't see that on most haunted. And there must have been about 20 orbs, but they were all together and they all came swooping down. And they swooped down into the room and they went around the punch bag in a circle. And as they were going around the punch bag started to sway side to side. And at first it was only very gentle and you could barely make it out. But the more you looked at it, the more it started to swing. And I'm going, oh gosh, wow, because you could see the orbs going around it and the orbs were pushing it backwards and forwards. And then suddenly the orbs came swirling around the punch bag and they flew straight at Danny. Now, he didn't see the orbs because you only pick them up on the night vision unless you're lucky enough to see them with the naked eye. But these things went straight towards him really fast and hit him straight in his stomach. And as they touched him, he just keeled over. And Elaine called out, can you put the lights on, everyone? So they put the lights on and she said, can you come and help me quick? And they came and they took Danny outside and they put him in the front garden and he was violently sick. And that's not something you can just fake. He was violently sick and he couldn't catch his breath. And we're saying, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was just stood in the background thinking, I saw you getting punched by these orbs. I did. I saw it in real time. And he said, it felt like, he said, we were just stood there talking. He said, and the next thing, I just felt like somebody just punched me so hard in my gut and they winded me. And it just took my breath. It took half an hour for him to come around. So he had to stay outside. And he said, I can't go back in yet because I just can't get my breath properly back. So that was something that we saw happen. And I was really shocked by that because I've had paranormal activity myself throughout my life, but I've never felt like I've been attacked physically. And I saw him getting that. And I saw what happened to him. And he really was in a bad way. And so I was like, oh, flipping heck. So we went back into the house and Elaine said, what I want to do is I want to go into the front bedroom now. And again, we're going to turn the lights out. But this time, what we're going to do is we're going to go in there together. And I don't want anybody coming in who's easily scared. I don't want people crying, screaming, jumping. So if you've got a nervous disposition, please do not come upstairs. And don't get involved in what we're going to do next because I need this to be cleansed tonight in this house. So only people who can hold themselves together can come upstairs. Well, you don't know what's going to happen. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm going because I just love all this stuff. So we went up into the main bedroom and she said, I want us all to stand in a circle in the bedroom because they'd moved all the furniture back. And we all stood and held hands. And she said, we're going to turn the light out in a minute. So I need you all to stay calm. I want you to keep your hands held with each other. Please don't break the circle because I am going to invite the spirits into the circle and then I'm going to ask them to leave. Well, my heart was pounding, but I thought, oh, this is right. Okay, then. So this was really interesting. There was a light that was left on the landing. So there was a faint light in the doorway of the bedroom, but the bedroom itself, they turned the light out. And so we're all stood in this circle and the lights went out. And she said, I'm calling in the spirit. And she named the spirit as well. Because she knew his name. And she said, I'm inviting you in here and I'm inviting the other one in, which was also a male. And she said the male that was hitting was, she believes, a relative of the girl. And the girl clarified that she thought it was too. She said she thought it was her uncle. And she said he was very protective of me when I was little, and he passed away when I was about 12. And so, as far as she was concerned, Elaine was correct on both of the spirits and the way she described them. So it was a case of let's deal with this. But what was quite funny is while we were holding hands, the atmosphere did change in the room, and this girl's partner started losing it, and he started going, I feel sick. I can feel it coming towards me, and it's going to get me, and I don't like it. I don't want to be here. But the people who were holding his hands were going, don't let go of our hands. Just be strong and stay calm. And I'm thinking, oh gosh. And he's going, I can't. I don't know if I can, because I can feel it coming, and I don't know. No. He said, I don't like it. So he started freaking out. And Elaine's going, please keep it together as much as you can, because we need to clear this energy now. But she's called out, is there anybody there? Oh my gosh. And straight away this woman muffled a scream. And my partner next to me squeezed my hand really tight, as if to say, I can see something. Now, I don't know what he was seeing at the time, but I was looking around and I did not see nothing. But 3 people all at the same time said, who's that lady in the doorway? And it was an elderly lady, and she was putting her head around the door, but it was like out of curiosity, and she looked really timid. Now, it's a funny thing. We had 12 people in that circle. 3 people saw us straight away. The rest of us didn't see her at all. So that just shows you how our minds are and our eyes, how different we all are. And so we were all like having a different experience, if you like. And then she went, and I thought, that's interesting that I didn't see her, and I think I'm psychic, but obviously I'm not really. And then what happened next? That freaked me out. So Elaine calls out, whoever's there, I need you to come into this circle now, and I'm going to talk to you. And I saw it clear as anything. And again, very, very strange, because out of the group of 12, again, only 3 people saw what I saw. And what it was the form of something pitch black. And it was like the form of a man. But what happened is it came towards the circle and then it shrunk down, right down to sort of like the ground, like till it was like a foot off the ground. And I'm like, oh gosh. And then it started to go around in the circle really, really, really slowly. And it went past my feet. And I'm like, oh God. And I was trying not to react, but it was very difficult. And again, I squeezed my partner's hand as if to say, I can see something, I can see something. But he didn't see that. So isn't that funny? He saw the lady in the doorway. I saw the shadow man and the man on the floor, but he didn't. And out of the group of 12, the people who saw the lady didn't see the shadow. There were another 3 people that saw the shadow man, and the rest of them saw nothing at all. So it was very strange. But as he was heading round in this circle, Elaine goes, I don't want anybody to be frightened now, and I don't want to alarm no one. But he's here, and he's in the circle, and he's crawling around on his hands and knees. And I'm like, oh. and he did really, really slowly around the circle on the floor. And I'm thinking, my gosh, you don't see this on the TV. And I thought, I can hear someone. it could be the caravan next door, but do you know what? While I was just talking, then I could hear muffled man's voice and it coming from behind me. So I hope it's Steve's TV. But yeah, she said he's here in the circle, and then she called him into the light, and she did this all these words and telling him that he needed to go and pass away, and that the couple would be sorted out, and he didn't have to worry about her anymore. And it cleared. It was great. But after that, we all went downstairs and we were talking, and then I said, "Wasn't there another ghost?" And she went, "Yeah." And she said, "But he's the benevolent one, the one that's nice. He doesn't hit the guy, and he's nice with the girl, so we'll just leave him." And I don't know why I said it, but I said, "Is there any chance I could go and have a try and see if I can see him on my own?" And she said, "Well, if you like." So I went back into the main bedroom and I sat on the bed, and they had cameras in there and they turned the lights out. So I just started talking loudly. "Are you here? Do you want to come and sit with me? Do you want to come and talk to me? Come and show yourself to me." I felt something. I did feel something, but it wasn't intense. But I did feel something like a presence around me, but I couldn't see nothing. And when I went downstairs, I said, did anybody see out?" And they were all looked at me and they went, "You were surrounded by orbs and they were going around you in a circle around you, just round and round and round." And Elaine said, "He was hugging you. He liked you." And I'm like, "Oh, wow." So I loved it. So what was really funny about that though, she cleared the angry spirit out, if you like. And then we all went home. And then I thought we'd never hear nothing again. And it must have been about maybe 3-4 weeks later, I was talking with Elaine again, and she said, "Oh, I need to tell you about the couple." Apparently, what had happened is after the house was cleared, the guy just decided for whatever reason that he was leaving, so he left her, and they broke up. And she said, "The house is full of spirits," and full of them. Since he's gone, they've all come, but they're all lovely, and I love them, she said. And she was sat with the ghosts every night, and she wasn't scared at all. And she said, "Ever since I was a little girl, I've been surrounded by them," and she believed they were relatives. And so she had no fear at all. But the guy left, and apparently when he went, all the dark energy went with him. So she said, "I think a lot of it came because of him, because he brought it to the house, because he was an angry person and very volatile. And it was like he antagonized everything there and made it all kick off." So that was very interesting. And it was not long after that I ended up moving back up, came up here to Scotland. So I had to leave the group anyway. But I found the group, things like that, really interesting, but the other stuff not at all, because it was too commercialized in the other places. Like, we're going to go to an haunted pub, or that's what everyone does. They all go there. And it's hard for me to get my head around whether it's a genuine thing, because if everybody's been to this location and they've all got a story, then you've already got it in your head about the story. So I preferred the one where we just went blindly and nobody really knew the whole story. It just made it a lot more interesting. And when I've watched the Most Haunted, I've never seen any footage like what I've seen. And it was absolutely great, and I loved it. I keep looking at this, and I am really disappointed because it says on here that it is live, and it's not. So it's not. It's just not doing it. No. It's funny because it's saying that it is live, and yet it's not. So yeah, I did ask if anybody was going to watch this, whether anybody wanted me to tell their stories, and I had a couple of people wrote to me and said, Yep, if you don't mind. So this one here is from Olywn. I hope I've said that right again, because we had this last time, didn't we? And Olywn said, my husband was 15 years old at a family gathering at his home. 6 people of friends and family were seated around the dining table. When my husband looked again around the table, the group had enlarged to around a dozen people. There was no colour, just black and white. Now seated in the chairs, the people had been replaced with past loved ones, grandparents and aunties. Some spirits not recognisable. People who had passed into the light. They were all chatting and laughing away. The experience lasted about 2 minutes, which seemed like a long time in a situation like that. It was as if they were there to say everything is fine and meant to be. And she goes on to say it could have been spirits trapped between 2 worlds. Who knows? So her son wasn't frightened. He was comforted by it, and he tried to explain this to his family, but only his mother listened. That's really, really interesting. And what's interesting about that is my friend Paul said something very similar. Him and his family get together every Christmas, and they have a gathering together just for one day. And they all say that their grandma always comes, and they always set a place for her at the table. And they say some of them can see her because it's like a psychic family, and some of them just feel her, and some say they can see like flickering lights around them and like a mist type thing. But they all say that in their family they believe that parties like weddings, at Christmas time, family gatherings invoke the spirits. So like your ancestors and relatives will come and celebrate with you, because they are always around us if they haven't moved on. Some of them stay somewhere else and look after us, but the ones that do that, they claim that there's certain celebrations that bring them in. And I know in like some traditions, they think Halloween's like that because that's when the veil is the thinnest between the 2 worlds. And so that is when spirits can come and get to us more easily and see us. So that's really, really interesting, that. And it's good that he wasn't scared as well, because some people freak out with these sort of things and they just can't handle it. But the fact that he saw that, and he wasn't scared and he was actually comforted, is really nice. And what's really interesting is that they were all happy and they were all celebrating. So, like you said, it the caught between worlds. Are you seeing like a recording of the past when they were all together, or were they there to join you in your celebration? Or I can't answer that myself, but I find it really fascinating and really interesting, because I do believe that we are not alone, and we've all got spirit guides, and they are relatives and ancestors and friends and people we've never met. But they're our friends, and I think we're all assigned somebody. And the more, some people have more than others, I think, because it depends what you're here to do. If you've got an assignment, then I believe that you get even more. And I find that really, really fascinating. And then I got another story off a lady called Christine. And she said, this is the story of my son who was a baby at the time. He used to lay and stare into space sometimes. Then he would smile and gurgle and reach out, but there was nothing there. Sometimes the cat would sit and stare with him into the corner of the room. I sometimes felt a warmth around me and a feeling of ease. As time passed, he started talking and he would babble words like Nana, play, but I saw nothing. When he was 3, he told me that Nana, and that was my late mother, got him a teddy bear. I played along with him and he kept pointing around the room, saying, look, Mummy. But again, I saw nothing. He got excited and started running around the room. Then he took off through the open door and up the stairs to my bedroom. This was the first time I actually felt a rush of adrenaline going through my body, because he ran to my wardrobe and shouted, "Mummy, Teddy here." I opened to the wardrobe and he shouted up, "Mommy, on the top." And there on the top shelf, tucked behind my blankets, was the teddy bear I was given by my mum as a little girl. There was absolutely no way he could have known it was there. It had lived there since my mum died because I couldn't bear to see it. I do believe he saw my mum and that she visited us for years, and that she led him to the teddy to bring back those happy memories I had locked away. What made me truly believe it was my mum is when I told him to name the teddy bear and he called him Harry. That's when I cried, because that was the name I had given him too. My son is grown now and doesn't really remember any of this because he grew out of it. But he gave the teddy to his own son when he was born last year. So let's see what he names it. So that's a nice one as well. So that wouldn't it be interesting if he came back when his child's older and said, "I'm going to call Teddy Harry," and then it's like a generational thing. But yeah, that I thought that was really, really sweet. But you know, in China, with I think it's the Tibetan monks, they believe in reincarnation, and they do tests with babies when they're born, because they believe that if you come back to the same family. So, for example, say grandma dies and then the child's born and it's a girl, they'll say that's grandma's back. And what they do is a test. And while the person is alive, they take something of theirs that's really personal to them, that only they have love for. So it could be a piece of jewellery or clothing or a toy, it could be anything, and they'll lock it away. And then when the baby's born and it gets to a certain age, then they take it out, or they leave it hidden, and then they wait to see if the child asks for it. And if the child comes forward and goes, "I want my doll," or something like that, and they go, "Where is it?" And they go, "Oh, it's in the cupboard," or whatever, and they find it and they name it after the same as the relative did, then to them that is proof that it's the relative has come back. And apparently in this order of monks, they have I'm going to call them the elders, but they're not elders, you know what I mean, that like the monks that are higher up in the monastery, and they're the ones who teach the younger people. And when they die, they'll say, "I'm going to come back," and they'll go back to the favorite pupil. And there's documented cases, according to them, of them coming back and doing exactly that. They will get to an age where they'll say, "I want my whatever it is, my book," or whatever, and they'll know where it is and what it's called. So that's their proof of reincarnation. But everywhere in the world's got their own traditions about ghosts and everything. I remember working in a nursing home, and this is really interesting, this one. And there was a guy there called Arthur, and he had spina bifida, and it was a bit out of place in the nursing home because it was a place for elderly, and he wasn't old. He was only in his late 40s, and his daughter was about 20. But because he had a physical disability and he couldn't take care of himself physically, they had to put him somewhere where he could get personal care, and that was the only place they could find. But he had all his faculties, and he was a really fun guy, and I loved him to bits. And he was quite naughty because he'd say, "I'm only allowed 3 cigarettes a day and I smoke 20, and it's not right." And because he had his own faculties, he could argue it. But the nurses would say, "Oh, it's because you're on a budget and you're only allowed X amount." So he used to say to me when I was on duty and the matron wasn't there, or the manager, he'd go, "Can you go and sneak me a cigarette?" So I always did. So It used to get me into trouble, which was quite funny, but I didn't care. No one ever really bothered checking really, but it was just little things like that, and we'd always be laughing, and people would come in and go, "You two just laugh all the time, don't you?" Because he was like a naughty schoolboy. It just do silly stuff, and it made me laugh. And then one day I went in, and we had some new staff there, and they were from abroad, and they were from somewhere like Africa. And one of the girls, I've forgotten her name now. It was she was called Precious, and the boy that came with her, he was called Success. And I went, I love that. I love those names. And they said, well, in our tribe where we come from, our parents give us names that they want us to carry throughout our life. So the name's important. And so she was called Precious and he was called Success. And I thought that was lovely. But I didn't realise how scared they were of the spirit world. And now I was shocked by that, because a lot of tribal folk are more earthy, if you like, the more set in tradition, and a lot of them do worship the ancestors, and they do believe in spirits and stuff like that. So a lot of those people abroad from tribes and stuff are usually really open-minded to stuff like this. But I found out that she was the opposite. And what happened is I'd gone into work one day, and somebody had said, oh, Arthur's not well, so he's not getting up today, he's staying in bed. And I went, oh, bless, I'll go and check on him. And they went, well, you need to make the breakfast first. So we had to set the tables for everybody and feed them. So sat having breakfast. And I thought, oh, he'll be all right. And then the matron came in and said, we're moving Arthur into another bedroom because he's really not well. And we've called the doctor, so they're on the way. And I went, is he going to be all right? And she went, yeah, he'll be fine. So we're eating breakfast. And in the dining room where it was in the nursing home, they had a wall full of alarms. And it was like an old-fashioned hotel where every room was linked to this board. So all the room numbers were on it with a light. And if somebody was in a room with one of the residents and something happened, you just press the buzzer and it would show up downstairs, and then everybody could see which room was pressing for help, and then you had to go and help. So they'd go off periodically when there were people in there. But this morning we were sat there having breakfast, and the doctor hadn't turned up at that point. And me and Precious were feeding some people on the table. And all of a sudden, the light came on that of the room that Arthur was in. And I said, oh, I'm going to go and check on him. And the matron walked into the room and she said, that alarm's going off. And I went, yeah, I'm just going to go and check on him. And she went, I'll go. So she went upstairs. And then about 10 minutes later, she comes down and she looked really quiet. And I said, are you all right? And she went, he's gone. And I said, what do you mean? She said, he's passed. And I was absolutely devastated. I was so upset because he was a young guy and he was lovely and he wasn't even ill. But he'd passed away. And I went, isn't that weird? It not only had he passed away on his own, but the alarm went off in the room he was in. So the girl next to me, Precious, grabbed hold of my arm and she went, oh, no, I don't like things like this. No, this is making me feel sick. All of a sudden, I kid you not, every single buzzer on the panel started going off, like flashing and buzzing. And I'm like, wow. And this girl next to me started having a massive panic attack. And she said, I can't do it, Kelly. I just feel sick. And she ran out. She said, I can't work here anymore. But I went to the bottom of the stairs and I called out, see you later, Arthur, lads. You're going to have a good time wherever you go. Don't be scared of nothing. Go and explore the universe. And the matron grabbed hold of me and she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm saying goodbye to him, because that's what he was doing. He was saying goodbye to us. And so we experienced that all together. And obviously the residents there were not really fully aware of anything anyway, so they didn't take any notice of it. But me and the staff, obviously, we did. But the other staff were all having panic attacks and freaking out, and I'm sat there going, Arthur, at least he said goodbye to us. But it's very funny how we all have the same experiences, and yet we all see things so differently. And the things that I find fascinating are absolutely terrifying to other people, and they can't cope with it. But I've never had full on vision things, and I think if I was on my own now and this place was pitch black and I saw something, I know I would freak out. So as much as I love all that sort of stuff, I also at the same time am very wary of, if I'm on my own, I'm more spooked by it. If I'm with somebody, I'm not as scared because I feel like I've got some protection there. But I've never been hit by a ghost. I don't feel I've ever been had anything bad done to me like that at all. So when that guy said he'd been punched, and then I saw Danny getting punched with the orb things, I was shocked because I didn't think they could even do anything like that to you. And I have read a lot of stories about people who claim that they've been thrown about and beaten and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, but have you though? But I've seen it, so I know that it's real and it's true. So there is a lot of things that are very weird going on. I mean, when my nana was in her last weeks of life, because she got cancer, she started seeing my granddad coming out of the wardrobe, and she'd go, "Oh, Joe's coming here," and they say that before you die, we start to get that veil just drops down, and you start to see the other side, and the other side can always see us because they're on a different frequency to us, and they can see us, but we can't always see them. But I think when you're dying, you do see them, and a lot of people come when you're dying and help you to the other side. Now that in itself is another story, because I'm always doing lots of research and things, and there's so many questions here about after death and who these people are that come and see you. Are they real or is it a deception and stuff? So that's for another time, because I go really deep in this stuff. I'm actually writing a book right now, and it's actually, when I'm reading back, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, your mind really is deep in it, and it's quite macabre. In the 1800s, there was a movement of paranormal investigators, and it became a big, massive thing. And this lasted until like the World War One, World War Two. And they used to do a lot of these seances, because obviously these were during times, like especially during the war, where a lot of our men were killed. And obviously you've got grieving mothers and wives and family members, and so many men were gone that this movement began. And it was really quite dark, because a lot of it was fake. And unfortunately, they used to do lots of tricks on people. And one of the things that they used to do is pretend that they were psychic mediums, and then they'd hold a seance in the relative's house, and they'd charge them for it. And then they'd bring a team of people. And what they would do is they'd bring things like curtains, and they'd get someone to stand there, and they'd go, we're going to bring your son back from the dead type thing. And they'd bring in actors and they'd pretend to be ghosts. And because these parents were grieving and stuff, and because everyone were like really superstitious and everything like that, they believed it, because it was a show that was put on for them, but it was all fake. So it was really rotten, and they did it for money. And because there was a lot of death around people then, they had a fascination with it. It wasn't mostly a fear. It was more of a, this can't possibly be real sort of thing. And I find it really, really interesting. And this is sort of going off subject a little bit, but this is a book that I've just read, and it's called The Coffin Roads. of Argyll, and the Coffin Roads go all the way through the UK. And I don't know about other countries whether their traditions were like this, but we're going back in time now to 1800s, 1900s. And the UK, England, Wales, Scotland is based on a lot of superstition and myths and legends. I should do no, do you know what? I'm going to save that because I love all that stuff. But that is a talk just on its own, because the things that people believed, and even now, I think we've been diluted down now. And I think we've come to a point where we are lesser than we was in a way, because we've lost a lot of our community and we've lost our family connections that we used to have. And because you used to have multi-generational families live together, and people all lived in the same neighborhood their whole lives, usually generational, especially the poor ones. And so traditions were passed down through the family, and people held on to their beliefs. And over time, they become known as myths and legends, but at the time, they were seen as facts. So I just love all that stuff. But the book that I'm writing is really dark, psychological, parapsychological. And I know when I've got it all done and everything, my family won't even bother reading that, because they'll be like, "That's too no, that's too deep for us. It's too no, I don't like it." But yeah, I had another story and I can't find it. I don't know what I've done with it, but it was told to me some time ago, and oh, I remember it. I remember it off the top of my head. And this was a lady who said she saw an unborn child in the future. So this was a really interesting one. And this is going back years ago when she told me. And she said she had a kind of a dream one night that she saw a little girl come towards her, and she described the little girl in great detail, like with a long blonde hair and pigtails, and the dress that she was wearing was like a floral dress made from cotton, and she was wearing long white socks and she had sandals on. And she said, I'd been told I could never have children, and it really used to hurt me and upset me, thinking I'll never be a mum, but I just had to deal with it and get on with life. And then when she was in her late 30s, she got pregnant. And during the pregnancy, she kept having dreams about this girl. And she said the girl that were coming towards her was 7 years old. And in the dream, when she was pregnant, the girl kept calling her mummy. And she's like, that's just weird. And then she had a little girl. And she said she called her Claire or something like that. And she said, sometimes things go out of your head for some time and you forget about it. She said, and it was years and years later, she said, we were all sat in the garden having a picnic, and she said, and my little girl had gone to a friend's house to play. And she said, and then I heard this voice going, "Mummy, mummy." She said, and I turned around and there she is. And she's wearing this dress that I saw before she was born. And her hair was put in pigtails. And she said, me and my friend had been dressing up. And the girl's mum had put this dress on her. And she had her hair, long blonde pigtails and all, whatever. She said it was just the exact vision of what I saw many years before she was even born. And then while I was pregnant with her. And she said, I saw my future child before she even came here. And I saw her in great detail at that exact age. So she said, to me, it wasn't a ghost, it was a premonition. And she said it really opened my mind to something, did that, because I couldn't believe that could even happen. But she said, I just knew that as soon as I saw that day, I just thought, that's it. That was no dream. It wasn't anything. It was literally a premonition of some sort. So that was really cool as well. So yeah, I'm going to apologise again that it never went on to the live stream thing, the chat, because I really wanted to talk to people, and I know there was a couple of people what were going to tell me some more stories on here tonight, so I'm a bit cheesed with that, because last time when I came on, it worked, and it worked great, and there was no problem with it at all. And now this time, for some reason, it just didn't come on. So I can only apologize that the chat was disabled. I'll try and make sure that I get it sorted for next time. But I'm going to do another talk next week, and I think I might do something really deep next week, like channeling, because this is something that I do as well. And I think I'm going to do one on that, because this is a psychological thing now. And the question that I'm going to ask you is, who are you channeling? So I'm going to go now. I'm going to say thank you for those that was watching. I'm so sorry I couldn't speak to you and see who you were, but hopefully you can leave some comments on this afterwards and just say whatever. But anyway, hopefully I'll see you in the next one, and I'll try and do it for like next weekend, same time, and get this sorted out so we can chat. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.